Hi, I'm Sean. Welcome to Defining Fuscata. Let's get to work. We have a lot of work to do. If you've already downloaded the Craft of Manifestation booklet, then you'll notice that the first 5 lessons are the fundamentals. And I put these in there because these are the fundamental concepts that you have to understand before you go on this journey. And the first one is that you assign meaning, okay? And the quote in here that I have is from A Course in Miracles that says, "Nothing I see in this room, on this street, from this window, in this place means anything." Now, this doesn't mean this in a nihilistic way. It's not saying that the world is meaningless and everything is arbitrary and there's no point to any of it, and that's not what this is talking about. This is talking about something more fundamental, and it's the idea that anything that you see in the world, like take this microphone for example. This microphone means something entirely different to me than it would mean to you or to my daughter or to my dog or whatever, because my earliest memories of microphones are of seeing my grandfather, who was a pastor of a big church, up on stage and preaching the gospel and speaking into a microphone. And so when I see a microphone, I associate it with him, and then I associate it with how he smelled and the blueberry pie my grandmother used to make, and the complexities in my relationship with him and his relationship with my father, and like all those sorts of things are just surround this microphone. And the thing is that like I gave it that meaning. So if you look around you right now and there's, I don't know, a pencil or a coffee mug or a wall or a house or a cat or whatever the thing is, if you look at that, whatever meaning that you give to that, you gave to that. This was a hard concept for me in the beginning because I was raised in a fundamentalist Christian home. And to me, I was raised to believe that the Bible was the inerrant word of God. It was completely flawless. It was perfect. And that leads to a very black and white understanding of reality, which just isn't the way that things work, honestly. And around 2006 or so, when I started having my spiritual awakening, I started asking deeper questions, is when I came across concepts like this. And at first, this is a hard thing to understand for me. But the more I leaned into it and studied it, the more it became very kind of freeing. So, and it's because of this. So the next point is here that I have, a point 2, is that when you assigned meaning to things, you didn't fully understand the world around you, and you still don't fully understand it. So Donald Hoffman is a PhD. I mean, he's not a physicist, but anyway, he studies perception and how we perceive the world around us. And according to his studies, there is an absolute 0% chance that we perceive the world as it actually is. And what that means is that because of our evolution, because of our cultures, because of our genetics, because of our associations, anytime we see something, all those other factors come in and play a part in how we perceive it, right? And somebody else might see the same thing and perceive it completely differently, right? And the thing is that when you start to understand that, and when you start to see that, it begins to free you up in a way that, so that you're no longer bound to your conceptions of things, okay? And the reason that this is important is because, going back to the earlier video about meditation practice and the centering method and taking a moment to center throughout the day, when you take that moment and you pull back for a minute. It's not just about being centered and looking at the things around you. Like right now, if I was to do that, I would say, all right, I'm going to center myself. Here's the microphone, and here's the boom, and there's the cord, and there's my computer, and there's my phone, and the lights, and the table, and everything's here, right? But that's only the first step. The next step then is to say, the meaning that I have for this table, I assigned it. And when I assigned the meaning to this table, I didn't fully understand the world, and I still don't fully understand the world. So, for example, this table came from my wife's father. He had it in his house. And it has a lot of sentimental meaning to her, and that's why we have it. I don't particularly care for this table. It serves a great purpose, and I'm thankful to have it here because otherwise I couldn't be doing the things that I'm doing. But to me, it's a table. I could cut it up and make it into something else or paint it a different color, whatever, right? I wouldn't even care. But for my wife, she ate breakfast at this table in a time in her life when she was really low and down and out, and her father was there at her side and supported her and guided her through those times. And they had meals at this table, and they had fights at this table, and they, smoked cigarettes at this table, and they had deep talks way into the night at this table. So the meaning for her is completely different. But the thing is that she assigned a meaning to this when she didn't fully understand the world, and she still doesn't. You see what I mean? Can you see how we can get trapped into thinking that the meaning that we've assigned to something is the real thing itself? So, now here's the next thing, and this is a difficult concept, and I can walk a fine line on this one, but it's important to understand. And it's this idea that thoughts are things. Now, I want to have a caveat in here that if you're someone who struggles with mental health issues, or maybe some kind of psychosis or something along those realms, I'm not a therapist. I'm not a psychiatrist, psychologist. I'm not an anythingist. And so if you struggle with those sorts of things, then please, by all means, seek professional help. Because I know they can be very, very serious. In my own life, I struggled with suicidal ideations for years. I still do. Nothing to worry about, but it's something that I've learned to manage. I've learned what it is. I know how it works. I know I have the tools to respond to it when it comes up in me. But this lesson is one of the things that has really, really helped me with that. And it's this idea that thoughts are things. And when you're in a very low frame of mind, when you're in a very low level of consciousness, if you study the work of Dr. David Hawkins and the different levels of consciousness, if you're down around shame and guilt and anger, if your consciousness level is there and you hear this idea that thoughts are things, then, like in my case, if a thought came up that said, you need to end this charade, I would think that's a real thing. I need to act on that, right? But I've done the work and I've raised my level of consciousness now so that when a thought like that comes up, I can just look at it and say, oh, there's that thought again. Interesting. And then just let it go. And it's gone into the vapor, right? But when the other aspect of thoughts being things is something that we often get confused too, because just like this table, for example, we tend to think that somebody somewhere had a thought of making a round table out of white oak, right? And then they made it, and then somebody else somewhere had a thought of building a logistical company to, transport tables, and somebody started a business to manufacture tables, and then somebody had a retail business that sold tables. And each one of those people had a thought that they were looking for a table, or they were looking for something to do. And then, the table kind of manifested in their life and became something that was in their life, right? For whatever reason. And then my father-in-law, he had a vision in his head one day where he thought, I could use a round table. And he went and got a round table, and now this round table is still here in the world. So we tend to think of that as, when, thoughts being things, is like a thought that leads to a physical thing itself, right? But I'm going to get a little bit woo-woo on you right now. And this is a heavy thing, so really meditate on this. When you think about thoughts, we tend to think as humans that we generate thoughts. But we don't always. The thoughts are more like the vibration in the unreal. They're more like the thing that Abraham Hicks calls the vortex. When you're having these thoughts, somebody's having a thought about getting pulled over by the police right now. But when you have those thoughts and they go into your vortex and there's something that's happening out there in front of you, right? And as you're moving through life, as your life is unfolding, as things are happening around you, and you're going to come to those thoughts that are out ahead of you, and you're going to come to thoughts that are going to be circulating and percolating all around, and they'll rise up in your mind, right? And then you can choose to act on them or not. You can choose to, if you have an idea for a business, you can choose to go start a business, or you can choose not to. But that thought is still out there, right? And so that's why, you saw, like in the 1950s and 60s, there was a huge influx of fast food restaurants that popped up, because it was a thought that was out there in the world, and different people picked up on it and perceived it. Different people tried it and failed. Some people tried it and were successful for a short time. Some people tried it and were successful for a long time. But the thing is that the idea of a fast food restaurant popped up and became something in the culture, and it manifested out into reality. So as you're going through this journey, you have to be aware of that, right? And you have to be aware that just like this microphone has a meaning to it for me, because I associate it with my grandfather and all that stuff, right? When a thought comes to me, I also associate a meaning with it. So like I said, when I was having my mental health crisis, if a dark thought like that came up at a low level of consciousness, I thought, that's something that I should do. At a higher level of consciousness, I think, that's something I need to let go of. But then when a thought of a business idea comes to you, or a thought of a person, like a significant person that you want in your life, or the thought of spiritual teaching that you're trying to figure out, like, all of those things are stuff that's in your vortex, and as you're moving forward through life, they're circulating up through you, and they're bubbling up in your mind, right? And you can assign the meaning to them. But then you also have to realize that when you first assign meaning to that thought, you didn't understand it. You didn't understand the world, and you still fully don't. And so when you do the meditation practice, not only are you to look at the table and those associations and step back from it, but also the thought that's in your mind. The recurring thought, the nagging thought, I'm worried about my taxes, I'm worried about my job, I'm worried about my spouse, I'm worried about the boyfriend, girlfriend, kids, dog, lawn, blah, whatever, all that kind of stuff. Because each one of those thoughts has an association with it, has a meaning to it that you gave to it when you didn't understand the world. Right? And if you want to understand it, all you have to do is step back for a second, relax your mind, and you'll start to understand it. Okay? So, and that's it. So here are the 4 points again, just to cover it. So we talked about the fundamentals that you assign meaning, and then we talked about everything you see around you has a meaning that you gave to it. We talked about when you assigned meaning to things, you didn't fully understand the world around you, and you still don't fully understand it. We talked about how thoughts are things, and they're composed of energy, just like all the material things that you see. And then we talked about how you assign meaning to your thoughts. And then I talked also a lot about how with all those things, you can step back and realize that. And you can realize that you assign that meaning. And as you raise in consciousness, the meaning that you associate with those thoughts and those things and all that kind of stuff will start to change. I say this over and over and over again. It's like Dr. Wayne Dyer used to say, when you change the way you look at things, the things you look at change. All right. So now let's go down to doing your internal work. All right. So here's your assignment for this week. I want you to write out the answers to these questions. And if you feel comfortable, feel free to share them in the group. If not, that's fine too. If you want coaching, that's available. I'd be happy to, and we can go over it. One-on-one. If you're not comfortable with that, that's also fine. However you want to do it is completely fine, and it's whatever you're comfortable is right. Okay. So what we're going to do is we're going to look at the closest thing to your right, the first thing your eye rests on. What is it? And describe what meaning it has to you, right? So for me, it's my laptop. And the meaning that it has to me is that, who's the guy? One of the Green brothers. He always had a sticker on there that said, "This machine kills fascists," or something like that. To me, this machine is a tool for spiritual awakening. This machine is something that allows me to communicate with the wider world and hopefully reach somebody, reach anybody, reach you, reach millions. I don't know. To make the world a little bit better place. That's what this thing means to me. So then with that same object, try to remember the first time you understood what that object is. And honestly, I don't think there was ever a first time I understood what that object is. I remember the first time I saw a laptop and I was fascinated by it. I thought this is cool foldy thing, and you had to be really careful with them. They were super delicate back in the day. But the first time you understood what that object is, I don't even remember. But this particular object, when I submitted to this idea that I have had for my life, like this calling that I've had for years and years that I've ignored and ignored and ignored. And finally I said, I have to just do this. And when that change came, all of a sudden the laptop went from something that was a burden, or I had to stay away from it because there's websites I shouldn't be going to, or it was like this weird drawn, back and forth dance with my laptop. But now I see it as, I can reach out to the world and I can help people. I can make the world a better place. So that's my answer to that question. So the last one, this is a hard one. If it's true that you assign meaning to the things in your life, how much authority does that give you to change the meaning of things in your life? And the answer is it gives you absolute authority. So like I just said a minute ago, a laptop used to be a point of contention for me because there are websites that I used to go to that I shouldn't go to. And I would, kind of stay away from it, or I would get sucked into a doom scroll on Facebook or something like that, right? But when I changed, when my identity changed, when my vision changed, then my meaning of the laptop changed and my interaction with it changed. And that's what Dr. Dyer was always saying, that if you change the way you look at things, then the things you look at change. So, anyway, I think that is it for today. And thank you for your time. Thank you for listening. I hope this was helpful. I would love to hear your comments in the discussion group, and I'll see you in there. Thank you very much.